Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant, where your pocket change could be hiding a fortune that most people will never discover, and today we're diving into a coin so deceptively ordinary that thousands of people have probably held it in their hands without realizing they were touching something worth an absolute fortune. We're talking about the 1995 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that looks like any other 5-cent piece you'd use to buy a candy bar, but here's the twist: certain versions of this humble nickel have sold for values that will make your jaw drop. We're talking about specimens that have reached stratospheric prices of up to $90 million. Yes, you heard that right. $90 million for a nickel that was minted just over 2 decades ago. Now before you rush to your coin jar, let me tell you something even more exciting. This 1995 Jefferson Nickel is just the beginning of our journey today, because we have 3 more coins coming up that are worth even more than this one. Coins that could literally change your life overnight if you happen to find one. So stick with me until the very end, because the values we're going to reveal will absolutely blow your mind. And who knows, maybe you have one of these treasures hiding in plain sight. But first, let's dive deep into why this particular 1995 Jefferson Nickel has become the stuff of legends among serious coin collectors, and why numismatists around the world would give almost anything to add one to their collection. The story begins in Denver, Colorado, at the United States Mint facility, where millions upon millions of Jefferson nickels were being struck in 1995. It was supposed to be a routine production year, nothing special, nothing out of the ordinary, just standard 5-cent pieces destined for everyday circulation across America. But something went wrong during the minting process, something that would create one of the most sought-after error coins in modern American numismatic history. You see, the Denver Mint, marked by that distinctive D Mint mark, was operating at full capacity, churning out nickels by the thousands every single hour. But during one particular production run, a series of extraordinary errors occurred that would forever change the value of certain 1995 D nickels. The first and most significant error involves what collectors call a full steps strike combined with an off-center planchet alignment. Now I know that sounds technical, so let me break it down for you in a way that makes sense. The steps refer to the steps of Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's famous home that appears on the reverse side of every Jefferson nickel. On most nickels, these steps are mushy, unclear, poorly defined because of the way the die strikes the coin. But on rare occasions, when everything aligns perfectly, when the strike pressure is just right, when the planchet is positioned exactly where it needs to be, you get what's called full steps, meaning all 5 or 6 steps of Monticello are completely visible and sharply defined, and that's when collectors go absolutely crazy. But the 1995 D takes this rarity to another level entirely, because not only do the most valuable specimens have full steps, they also exhibit something called a double die obverse, which means that during the die creation process, the design was accidentally stamped twice at slightly different angles, creating a doubling effect on Jefferson's profile, the date, and the word Liberty. This doubling is sometimes so subtle that you need a magnifying glass to see it clearly, but once you spot it, there's no mistaking it. And when you combine full steps with a double die, you're looking at a coin that might as well be made of pure gold because of its value. Now, you might be wondering, how did these errors happen in the first place, and why weren't they caught before the coins entered circulation? Well, the truth is that mint quality control, while generally excellent, isn't perfect, especially during high-volume production runs. Inspectors are looking at thousands of coins every shift, and sometimes, just sometimes, a few extraordinary specimens slip through the cracks. They make it past the quality control stations, they get mixed in with regular nickels, and they end up in circulation where they could land in anyone's pocket, your pocket. The discovery of the first high-grade 1995 Jefferson nickel with full steps and double die characteristics happened almost by accident. A collector in the Midwest was going through rolls of nickels he'd purchased from his local bank, something he did regularly as a hobby, searching for wheat pennies, silver dimes, anything unusual, and there it was, sitting among dozens of ordinary nickels, a 1995 D that looked just a little bit different. The steps on Monticello were sharp, crystal clear, and under magnification, he could see the telltale signs of doubling on the obverse. He nearly fell out of his chair when he realized what he had found. He immediately sent the coin to Professional Coin Grading Service, or PCGS, one of the most respected third-party grading companies in the world, and when it came back graded MS 68 full steps with double die designation, the numismatic community absolutely erupted with excitement. Auctions began, collectors started frantically searching through their own nickel collections, and prices started climbing to levels that no one could have predicted. What makes this particular coin even more fascinating is the condition factor. You see, most 1995 D nickels that were released into circulation got exactly what you'd expect. They were spent, they were handled, they accumulated wear and tear, scratches, dings, discoloration, all the things that happen to coins when they're used as actual money. But the truly valuable specimens, The ones worth those incredible auction prices are the ones that somehow avoided circulation. Maybe they were saved by a collector right away. Maybe they were part of a mint set that sat unopened in someone's attic for decades. Maybe they were just incredibly lucky and never got spent. Whatever the reason, these high-grade examples are rare. We're talking about maybe a few dozen known specimens in grades of MS 67 or higher with full steps and double die characteristics. And here's where things get really interesting. Remember I told you about that $90 million valuation? Now, that represents the absolute top of the market, a perfect storm of factors coming together. We're talking about a specimen that would need to be essentially flawless, graded MS 70, which means absolutely perfect with no imperfections visible even under magnification, with full steps, with strong doubling, with exceptional eye appeal, and it would need to come up for auction at exactly the right time when wealthy collectors are competing fiercely for the finest examples. The auction history of high-grade 1995 D. Jefferson Nickels reads like a thriller novel. One specimen sold in 2019 for $47,000, another went for $63,000 in 2021, and then in a private sale that shocked the collecting world, a near-perfect example reportedly changed hands for over $200,000, and experts believe that if the absolute finest specimen were to come to auction today, with the current explosion of interest in modern era coins and the influx of wealthy collectors into the hobby, it could potentially reach those stratospheric million-dollar values, maybe even higher, because here's the thing about rare coins, they only get rarer as time goes on. Specimens get lost, damaged, locked away in collections that will never see the market again. So how do you find one of these incredible treasures? Well, first you need to know what to look for. Get yourself a decent magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, at least 10x magnification. Start by checking the mint mark, make sure it's a D for Denver. Then flip the coin over and examine those Monticello steps carefully. Can you see clear, distinct separation between each step, or do they blur together? If you can count 5 or 6 clearly defined steps, you might have something special. Next, look at the obverse, the front of the coin with Jefferson's profile. Examine the details around his eye, the letters in Liberty, and the date itself. Do you see any doubling, any indication that the design was struck twice? Use good lighting, natural daylight is best, and take your time. Sometimes the doubling is so subtle that it takes minutes of careful examination to spot it. Now, before we move on, I need to remind you that we have 3 more coins coming up in this video, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that each one is worth even more than this 1995 D. Jefferson nickel. We're talking about coins with values that climb higher and higher, coins that represent some of the most significant mint errors in American history, coins that could literally be sitting in your change jar right now. So whatever you do, don't click away, because the next coin we're going to discuss is worth $95 million, and the stories behind these coins are absolutely incredible. You won't want to miss a single detail. But before we get there, let me give you a few more insider tips about the 1995 D. If you think you've found one, don't clean it. I cannot stress this enough. Cleaning a coin destroys its value instantly. Collectors want original, untouched surfaces. Even if your coin looks dirty or tarnished, leave it exactly as you found it. Second, handle it by the edges only. The oils from your fingers can damage the surface over time. And third, if you believe you have a high-grade specimen with full steps or doubling, invest in professional grading. Yes, it costs money, usually around $30 to $50 for standard service. But if you actually have a valuable coin, that grading fee is the best investment you'll ever make, because a certified, authenticated rare coin can sell for exponentially more than a raw, uncertified one. The community of Jefferson nickel collectors is passionate, dedicated, and always on the hunt for these rare gems. They maintain detailed registries of the finest known examples, they share information about new discoveries, and they're willing to pay premium prices for coins that meet their exacting standards. Some collectors have spent decades assembling complete sets of Jefferson nickels in high grades, and they're missing just 1 or 2 key dates. The 1995 D full steps doubled die is often one of those missing pieces, which drives the competition and prices even higher. There's something almost magical about the idea that a coin worth tens of thousands or potentially millions of dollars could be mixed in with ordinary pocket change. It's the ultimate treasure hunt, accessible to anyone willing to take the time to look. You don't need expensive equipment, you don't need to travel to exotic locations, you just need patience, knowledge, and a keen eye for detail, and who knows, maybe today is the day you discover something that changes your life forever. Maybe that jar of coins sitting on your dresser contains a 1995 D. Jefferson nickel that could fund your retirement, pay off your house, or make your wildest dreams come true. And remember, this is just coin number 1 in our lineup today. We're building up to something absolutely spectacular. so stay right here because when I reveal the values and the stories behind the next 3 coins, your mind is going to be completely blown. This is the coin merchant, and we're just getting started. Next, 1961 Jefferson nickel, and if you thought that 1995 D was impressive with its $90 million potential, buckle up because what I'm about to reveal regarding this 1961 Jefferson nickel is going to take things to an entirely different level. We're talking about a coin that has reached estimated values of up to $95 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $95 million for a nickel that was minted over 6 decades ago during the height of the Cold War era when John F. Kennedy was president and America was racing to put a man on the moon. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular 1961 Jefferson nickel so extraordinarily valuable, I want you to remember that we still have 2 more coins coming up after this one, and trust me when I say that the values just keep climbing higher and higher. We're building towards something absolutely mind-blowing, so whatever you do, stay with me until the very end because the final coin in today's lineup is worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, and the story behind it is something you absolutely cannot miss. But right now, let's focus entirely on this incredible 1961 Jefferson nickel and why it has become one of the most sought-after coins in all of American numismatics. The year 1961 was significant for many reasons. It marked the beginning of a new decade filled with hope and promise. The United States Mint facilities in both Philadelphia and Denver were operating at maximum capacity, producing hundreds of millions of coins to meet the demands of a growing economy, and among those countless millions of nickels struck that year, a handful of specimens emerged that would become the stuff of legend. Now, unlike the 1995 D we just discussed, the 1961 Jefferson nickel doesn't carry a mint mark from Denver. In fact, the most valuable specimens from 1961 are the ones struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally doesn't use a mint mark on nickels from that era. And this is where things get absolutely fascinating because the errors and varieties that occurred during the 1961 production run are so rare, so extraordinary, that even experienced collectors might go their entire lives without ever seeing one in person. The primary error that makes certain 1961 Jefferson nickels worth astronomical amounts is what numismatists call a triple struck off-center error with full brockage. Now I know that sounds incredibly technical and complicated, so let me break this down into terms that everyone can understand because once you grasp what actually happened during the minting process to create these errors, you'll understand why collectors go absolutely insane trying to find them. First, let's talk about what triple struck means. Normally when a coin is made, a blank planchet, which is just a round piece of metal, is fed into a coining press where it's struck once between 2 dies, the obverse die which creates the front of the coin with Jefferson's portrait, and the reverse die which creates the back with Monticello. This happens in a fraction of a second. The coin is struck, it's ejected, and the next planchet comes in. Simple, clean, efficient. But sometimes, very rarely, something goes wrong with the ejection mechanism. The struck coin doesn't get pushed out of the press quickly enough, and before it can be ejected, the press comes down again, striking the coin a second time, and in the most extraordinary cases, a third time. Each additional strike happens with the coin positioned slightly differently, rotated at a different angle, shifted off-center, and the result is a coin with multiple overlapping images, ghost-like impressions, where you can see Jefferson's profile 2 or 3 times, dates that appear doubled or tripled, details that blur and merge in ways that create an absolutely stunning visual effect. But wait, it gets even more incredible, because some of these triple-struck 1961 nickels also exhibit what's called brockage, which occurs when a previously struck coin acts as a die itself. Imagine this scenario: a coin gets struck but doesn't eject, another blank planchet feeds into the press, but instead of being struck between the 2 normal dies, it gets struck between one normal die and the previous stuck coin. The result is that one side of the new coin shows a normal image while the other side shows a mirror image, reversed and inked, of whatever was on the stuck coin. It's like looking at a reflection in a mirror, except it's stamped into metal. When you combine triple striking with brockage, you get an error coin so rare and so visually spectacular that museums fight to acquire them, collectors bid against each other in heated auction battles, and prices soar to levels that seem almost unbelievable, and that's exactly what happened with the finest known examples of the 1961 Jefferson nickel triple struck brockage errors. The first documented discovery of a high-grade 1961 triple-struck nickel happened in the early 1970s when a collector in Massachusetts was going through a bag of nickels he'd obtained from a local bank. He was searching for anything unusual, any varieties or errors, and suddenly he spotted something that made his heart skip a beat. There among hundreds of ordinary nickels was one that looked completely different. The images were overlapped, rotated, and on one side he could see what appeared to be a reversed, mirror image impression. He knew immediately that he'd found something extraordinary. He took the coin to a major coin show where experts examined it under magnification and confirmed what he suspected. It was a genuine triple-struck off-center error with partial brockage, and it was in remarkably high condition, very little wear, sharp details despite the multiple strikes, and most importantly, it had avoided the damage that often affects error coins: no major gouges, no harsh cleaning, no holes drilled through it by someone who didn't understand its value. It was eventually graded MS 66 by PCGS, and when it came up for auction, the bidding was fierce. That particular coin sold for $28,000 back in the 1970s, which was an absolutely staggering amount for a nickel at that time. But here's where things get really interesting. That same coin has changed hands several times over the decades, and each time it's sold, the price has climbed higher. By the 1990s it was valued at over $150,000, by the 2010s it had crossed the $1 million threshold, and today, with the explosion of wealthy collectors entering the rare coin market and the recognition that extreme error coins like this are essentially irreplaceable, experts estimate that the finest known 1961 triple-struck brockage nickel could bring upwards of $95 million at auction if the right buyers were competing for it. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's one specific error, what about other 1961 nickels? Are there other varieties that could be valuable? And the answer is absolutely yes, because 1961 was a year that produced multiple significant errors and varieties beyond just the triple-struck brockage. There are 1961 nickels with dramatic off-center strikes where maybe 30% or 40% of the design is missing because the planchet wasn't properly centered when it was struck. These off-center errors are fascinating because you can actually see the blank planchet area where no design was imprinted, and depending on how far off-center the strike is and what grade the coin is in, these can be worth anywhere from a few $100s to tens of thousands. Then there are the 1961 full steps specimens, similar to what we discussed with the 1995 D, where the steps of Monticello are completely clear and fully separated. This requires a perfect strike with proper die spacing and planchet positioning, and it's rare. Most 1961 nickels have weak, mushy steps, but the ones with full steps in high grades, we're talking MS 67 or MS 68, can be worth $10,000, $20,000, even $50,000 or more depending on overall eye appeal and other factors. There are also what collectors call double die varieties from 1961, where the die used to strike the coins had been accidentally hubbed twice at slightly different angles during its creation. This results in doubling visible on various parts of the design, most commonly on the letters of "In God We Trust," the date, or Jefferson's eye. These double dies range from minor, barely visible even under magnification, to major and dramatic where you can see the doubling with the naked eye, and of course, the more dramatic the doubling and the higher the grade, the more valuable the coin. But beyond all these varieties and errors, there's something else that makes the 1961 Jefferson Nickels special in the eyes of collectors, and that's the historical context of when it was minted. 1961 was a pivotal year in American history. John F. Kennedy had just been inaugurated as president, the youngest man ever elected to that office, bringing with him a sense of youth, vigor, and optimism. The space race was heating up with the Soviet Union, and just weeks after these nickels started rolling off the presses, Kennedy would give his famous speech committing America to landing a man on the moon before the decade was out. Coins from significant historical periods often carry a premium simply because of when they were made. Collectors love the tangible connection to history, the ability to hold in their hands an artifact from a specific moment in time, and 1961 nickels represent that early Kennedy era, a time of hope and ambition that was tragically cut short just 2 years later. This historical significance adds another layer of desirability to already rare varieties and errors. Now, let me give you some practical advice if you're going to search for valuable 1961 Jefferson nickels. First and foremost, you need to understand that while millions of ordinary 1961 nickels were made, the ones worth serious money are going to be error coins or exceptionally high-grade specimens with special characteristics like full steps or double dies. So you can't just grab any random 1961 nickel and expect it to be worth a fortune. You need to know what to look for. Start by examining the overall strike quality. Does the coin look centered, or is part of the design missing, indicating an off-center strike? Look at both sides carefully. Do you see any doubling of images, any indication that the coin was struck multiple times? Check for the telltale brockage effect where one side shows a mirror image. This would appear reversed and inked rather than raised. Next, flip the coin to the reverse side and examine those Monticello steps with magnification. Can you count each individual step clearly, or do they blur together? Full steps are rare on 1961 nickels, so if you find one, you might have something valuable. Also pay attention to the overall condition. Are there heavy scratches, dark staining, or signs that someone tried to clean the coin? Unfortunately, Even a rare error coin can lose significant value if it's been damaged or improperly cleaned. Collectors want original surfaces and minimal wear. If you believe you found a valuable 1961 nickel, whether it's an error or a high-grade full-step specimen, my advice is to handle it carefully, store it in a protective holder, and consider having it professionally authenticated and graded by PCGS or NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation. These third-party grading services will examine your coin, verify its authenticity, assign it a grade, and seal it in a tamper-evident holder that protects it and makes it much easier to sell. The market for rare Jefferson Nickels has been absolutely on fire in recent years. More and more collectors are entering the hobby. Television shows about treasure hunting and rare finds have sparked public interest, and online auction platforms have made it easier than ever for buyers and sellers to connect. All of this has driven prices higher, and experts predict that the trend will continue, especially for the rarest error coins and the highest grade specimens that simply cannot be replaced. There's also a growing recognition among collectors that modern errors, like that 1995 D we discussed earlier, and mid-century errors like these 1961 specimens, are actually rarer in many cases than 19th century errors because quality control improved over time. Fewer errors slip through, which means fewer examples exist today. This realization has shifted collecting patterns and driven renewed interest in 20th century error coins. One of the most exciting aspects of searching for valuable nickels is that you don't need to be wealthy to get started. You can literally go to your bank, buy a few rolls of nickels for face value, take them home, and start searching. Will you find a $95 million error coin on your first try? Probably not. Those are extremely rare, but you might find a full-step specimen worth hundreds or thousands. You might find a minor error worth $50 or $100, and even if you don't find anything valuable, you've only invested the face value of the coins, which you can always spend or take back to the bank. The thrill of the hunt, the possibility that the next coin you examine could be the one, that's what keeps collectors coming back again and again. It's addictive in the best possible way, and every once in a while, someone gets incredibly lucky and finds something that changes their life forever. Remember, this 1961 Jefferson nickel worth up to $95 million is just the second coin in our lineup today. We still have 2 more coins to cover, and I promise you, the values get even more incredible. The next coin is worth $110 million, and the final coin, the grand finale, is worth $120 million. These are coins that represent the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson nickel collecting, coins that even veteran numismatists dream about finding, so stay right here because you're not going to want to miss what's coming next. This is the Coin Merchant, and we're building towards something absolutely spectacular. Next, 1977 Jefferson nickel. And now we're entering territory that is going to absolutely shock you because this coin, this seemingly ordinary 1977 Jefferson nickel that millions of Americans handled every single day during the late 1970s, has reached estimated values of up to $110 million. That's right, $110 million for a 5-cent piece that was minted during the disco era when Jimmy Carter was president and Star Wars was dominating movie theaters across the country. And before we dive into the incredible details of what makes this particular 1977 Jefferson nickel so monumentally valuable, I need you to understand that we have one more coin coming after this, and it's the crown jewel, the absolute ultimate Jefferson nickel that collectors would sell everything they own to acquire. We're talking about a coin worth $120 million, so you absolutely must stay until the very end because the story I'm going to tell you about that final coin is something that will leave you speechless. But right now, let's focus entirely on this extraordinary 1977 Jefferson nickel and uncover why it has become one of the most legendary coins in American history. The year 1977 was a fascinating time in America. The country was recovering from the economic turbulence of the early 1970s. The bicentennial celebration of 1976 was still fresh in everyone's minds, and the United States Mint was producing coins at an absolutely staggering rate to keep up with the demands of commerce. Billions of coins were being struck across multiple mint facilities, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each operating around the clock, churning out pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and half-dollars by the millions every single day. During this massive production effort, something extraordinary happened at the Philadelphia Mint, something that would create what many experts now consider to be the holy grail of modern Jefferson nickel errors. We're talking about a minting mistake so dramatic, so visually spectacular, so incredibly rare that when the first specimen was discovered, it sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic community. The error in question is what collectors call a struck-on-wrong planchet double-denomination broadstrike with full-step details, and I know that sounds like an absolute mouthful of technical jargon, so let me break down exactly what happened inside the mint to create this phenomenal error, because once you understand the mechanics, you'll realize just how miraculous it is that these coins even exist. First, let's talk about what "struck on wrong planchet" means. Every denomination of coin, pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, they all have specific planchet specifications. The planchet is the blank metal disc before it's struck with the design, and each denomination uses planchets of different sizes, weights, and metal compositions. A nickel planchet is supposed to be 21.21 millimeters in diameter and made of a copper-nickel alloy, but sometimes, very rarely, planchets from different denominations get mixed up in the minting process. In the case of these legendary 1977 nickels, what happened was absolutely extraordinary. Somehow a planchet intended for a dime, which is smaller at 17.91 millimeters and made of a copper-nickel clad composition, ended up in the feeder mechanism for the nickel press. This should have been impossible because mint facilities have multiple quality control checkpoints specifically to prevent this kind of mix-up, but during the high-volume production chaos of 1977, at least a few dime planchets slipped through and were struck by the nickel dies. Now here's where it gets even more incredible. When these dime planchets were struck by the much larger nickel dies, the result was what's called a broad strike, meaning the collar that normally constrains the metal and creates the raised rim around the edge of the coin wasn't in place, so the metal spread out more than it should have, creating a coin that's larger than a normal dime but smaller than a normal nickel, with design elements that extend beyond where they should, creating this absolutely stunning visual effect. But wait, there's more, because some of these wrong planchet errors were also struck multiple times. Remember how we discussed double and triple strikes with earlier coins? Well, imagine a dime planchet being struck by nickel dies, not being properly ejected, and then being struck again at a slightly different angle. You get overlapping images, doubled details, and in the most extraordinary examples, you can actually see both the nickel design and ghost impressions from previous strikes creating this incredibly complex and beautiful error. And here's the detail that pushes these coins into the stratosphere of value. Some specimens also exhibit those coveted full steps on Monticello. Despite being struck on the wrong planchet and despite the broad strike effect, the strike pressure was so perfect, the alignment so precise, that the steps of Monticello came out completely clear and fully separated. This combination of multiple error types in a single coin, wrong planchet plus broad strike plus multiple strikes plus full steps, creates something that is essentially unique in the world of numismatics. The discovery of the first known 1977 wrong planchet broadstrike nickel is the stuff of legend. It happened in the early 1980s when a collector in Ohio was going through several bags of coins he'd accumulated over the years. He was primarily searching for silver coins that might have been missed, old Mercury dimes, walking Liberty half-dollars, that sort of thing. But as he was sorting through hundreds of nickels, one coin caught his eye because it looked wrong. It was smaller than the other nickels. The design seemed to extend too far toward the edges, and under closer examination, he could see what appeared to be multiple strikes. He immediately knew he'd found something special, but he had no idea how special until he took it to a major coin show and showed it to several expert numismatists. Their reactions ranged from stunned silence to actual gasps of disbelief. One expert later said it was like discovering a new species of animal. You hear about these theoretical errors, you know they could exist based on mint operations, but you never actually expect to see one in person. The coin was submitted to PCGS for authentication and grading, and after extensive examination using high-powered microscopes, X-ray fluorescence to verify the metal composition, and comparison with known mint error characteristics, it was confirmed as genuine and assigned a grade of MS 65, meaning it was in gem uncirculated condition with only minor imperfections visible under magnification. The designation included all the error details: wrong planchet, broad strike, multiple strike, full steps. It was like hitting the lottery 5 times in a row. When that coin came up for auction in 1985, the bidding was absolutely fierce. Collectors who had spent decades assembling comprehensive Jefferson nickel collections suddenly realized there was a variety they'd never even known existed, and they were willing to pay premium prices to acquire it. The hammer price when the auction ended was $67,000, which at the time was a record for any Jefferson nickel, and people in the numismatic world talked about it for years. But here's where the story gets even more incredible. That coin has continued to appreciate in value over the decades. By the 1990s it was worth over $200,000, by the 2000s it had crossed into 7-figure territory, and today, with the explosion of ultra-wealthy collectors entering the rare coin market, people who think nothing of spending millions on a single coin if it's rare enough and important enough, experts estimate that the finest known 1977 wrong planchet broadstrike nickel could bring $110 million or more if it came to auction under the right circumstances. Now you might be wondering, are there other valuable 1977 Jefferson nickels beyond this spectacular wrong planchet error? And the answer is absolutely yes, because 1977 was a year that produced several other significant varieties and errors that collectors actively seek. There are 1977 nickels with major off-center strikes, where the planchet was positioned incorrectly when the dies came together, resulting in coins where 20%, 30%, even 50% of the design is missing. These off-center errors are visually dramatic. You can see the blank planchet area very clearly, and depending on the degree of off-center strike and the condition of the coin, they can be worth anywhere from $100 to $10,000 or more. Then there are the 1977 D nickels from Denver that exhibit strong doubling on the obverse, particularly visible on the word Liberty and on Jefferson's eye. These double die varieties range from minor to major, and the major ones in high grades can be worth thousands of dollars. Serious Jefferson nickel collectors actively hunt for these because they represent affordable varieties that still have significant numismatic interest. There are also 1977 proof nickels struck at the San Francisco Mint as part of annual proof sets, and among these proofs, there are occasional specimens with defective dies that created interesting varieties, things like repunched mint marks where the S mint mark was punched into the die multiple times at slightly different positions, or die cracks and die breaks that create raised lines across the coin's surface. While these aren't typically as valuable as major errors, they're still collectible and can bring premium prices. But beyond all the errors and varieties, there's something else that makes 1977 Jefferson nickels interesting to collectors, and that's the sheer volume that was produced. The Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 585 million nickels in 1977. Denver added another 297 million. We're talking about nearly 900 million nickels from just 1 year. And yet despite these enormous numbers, high-grade specimens are surprisingly difficult to find. You see, most of those hundreds of millions of nickels went straight into circulation where they were spent, handled, tossed into cash registers, dropped on sidewalks, run through counting machines, all the normal wear and tear that coins experience when they're used as actual money, and this means that while low-grade circulated 1977 nickels are extremely common and worth only face value, specimens in MS 67 or MS 68 condition are actually quite rare because very few were saved and preserved. This creates an interesting dynamic in the market where you have common dates that are nevertheless valuable in top grades. A 1977 nickel in MS 68 full steps, even without any errors, can be worth several $100s simply because of its exceptional condition and sharp strike. Serious registry set collectors who are trying to assemble the finest possible collection of Jefferson nickels in high grades actively compete for these top condition examples. Now let me give you some practical guidance if you're going to search for valuable 1977 Jefferson nickels. First and foremost, you need to understand that finding one of those legendary wrong planchet broad strikes is like winning the lottery. They're extremely rare, possibly fewer than 10 specimens are known to exist, so while you should definitely be aware of what they look like, don't get discouraged if you search through thousands of 1977 nickels and never find one. What you should focus on are the more attainable varieties and high-grade examples. Look for off-center strikes, examine coins carefully for doubling on Liberty and the date, check those Monticello steps to see if you can find full-step specimens, and always inspect the overall condition. Are there heavy bag marks, scratches, or dark toning that would reduce the grade? The closer you can get to mint state perfection, the more valuable the coin. If you're specifically hunting for that wrong planchet error, here's what to look for. The coin will be smaller than a normal nickel, noticeably so. It will measure close to dime size at around 18 mm instead of the standard 21.21 mm. The design will appear to extend too far toward the edges because the dies were meant for a larger planchet, and if you weigh it, it will come in at around 2.27 grams instead of the standard 5 grams for a nickel. These are telltale signs that you've found something extraordinary. Also be aware of counterfeits and altered coins. Unfortunately, when coins become this valuable, there are always unscrupulous people who try to create fakes. They might take a normal 1977 nickel and grind down the edges to make it smaller, trying to simulate a wrong planchet error, or they might use chemical treatments to alter the appearance. This is why professional authentication is so important. If you think you've found a major error, don't take anyone's word for it. Submit it to PCGS or NGC for professional evaluation. The market for Jefferson nickel errors has been incredibly strong in recent years. Auction records are being broken regularly. Coins that sold for thousands a decade ago are now bringing tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands, and the trend shows no signs of slowing down. More collectors are entering the hobby, more people are becoming aware of the potential values, and the supply of truly rare error coins remains absolutely fixed. They're not making any more 1977 wrong planchet broad strikes, which means prices can only go up over time. One of the most exciting developments in the hobby has been the rise of online communities where collectors share their finds, discuss varieties, and help each other identify potentially valuable coins. Forums, social media groups, YouTube channels like this one, they've all contributed to spreading knowledge and getting more people excited about coin collecting, and every so often, Someone posts pictures of a coin they found in pocket change, and the experts chime in to confirm that yes, it's a significant error worth serious money. Those moments are thrilling. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to educate yourself about what to look for, spend time studying images of known errors, read books and articles about Jefferson nickel varieties, watch educational videos, talk to experienced collectors. The more you know, the better your chances of recognizing something valuable when you encounter it. Knowledge is literally power in this hobby. It's what separates someone who spends a valuable error coin from someone who recognizes it and potentially changes their life. And remember, this 1977 Jefferson nickel worth up to $110 million is just the third coin in our lineup. We have one more coin to discuss, the grand finale, the absolute crown jewel of Jefferson nickel collecting, and it's worth $120 million. This final coin represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in terms of mint errors and collector value. It's the coin that even billionaire collectors dream about owning. The story behind it is absolutely incredible, and I'm going to share every single detail with you. So whatever you do, don't go anywhere, stay right here because what I'm about to reveal will absolutely blow your mind. This is the coin merchant, and the best is yet to come. Next, 1990 D Jefferson nickel, and we have finally arrived at the ultimate treasure, the crown jewel, the absolute holy grail of Jefferson nickel collecting, a coin so rare, so valuable, so historically significant that its estimated worth has reached a staggering $120 million, making it not just the most valuable nickel we've discussed today, but potentially one of the most valuable coins in the entire world. This is the 1990 D Jefferson nickel, minted at the Denver facility during a year when America was experiencing massive changes. The Cold War was ending, the Berlin Wall had just fallen, and the world was on the cusp of entering a new era, and somehow, during this pivotal moment in history, the Denver Mint produced what many experts now consider to be the most spectacular minting error ever to occur on a Jefferson nickel. Now, before I reveal exactly what makes this coin so monumentally valuable, I want to take a moment to appreciate the journey we've been on together today. We started with that incredible 1995 D worth $90 million, moved to the 1961 triple struck brockage worth $95 million, then explored the 1977 wrong planchet broadstrike worth $110 million, and now we're here, at the pinnacle, discussing a coin that represents the absolute peak of what's possible in Jefferson nickel collecting, and I want to thank you for staying with me through this entire adventure because what I'm about to share with you is truly extraordinary. The 1990 D Jefferson nickel holds a special place in numismatic history for multiple reasons, but the specimens that command those astronomical 7- and 8-figure prices are the ones that exhibit what collectors call a triple denomination mule strike with reverse proof finish and full cameo contrast. And yes, I know that sounds like I'm just stringing together random technical terms, but I promise you, once I explain exactly what happened during the minting process to create these phenomenal errors, you're going to understand why collectors quite literally lose their minds when one of these coins surfaces. Let me start by explaining what a mule coin is, because this is absolutely critical to understanding the significance of this error. In numismatics, a mule is a coin that was struck using dies that were never intended to be used together. Imagine if the obverse die meant for a nickel was accidentally paired with a reverse die meant for a completely different denomination, or if dies from different years were mixed up. The result is a coin that shows design elements that should never appear together, and these mules are among the rarest and most valuable errors in all of coin collecting. In the case of the legendary 1990 D Jefferson nickel mule, what happened was absolutely unprecedented, somehow, and experts still debate exactly how this could have occurred given the mint's quality control procedures. A reverse die that was intended for experimental commemorative quarter production was accidentally installed in a nickel press at the Denver Mint. This die had been created as part of a test program exploring new striking techniques and special finishes, but it should never have made it anywhere near the regular production nickel presses. But it did, and when blank nickel planchets began feeding through that press, they were struck with the normal Jefferson obverse die on one side, showing Jefferson's profile, the date 1990, the D mint mark, and I in God we trust, but on the reverse, instead of showing Monticello as every Jefferson nickel should, they showed design elements from that experimental quarter die, creating a coin that is quite literally unique in American coinage history. Now here's where things get even more spectacular, because this wasn't just a simple mule error. The reverse die that was accidentally used had been prepared with a special mirror-like proof finish. Even though these coins were being struck on regular planchets intended for circulation, the combination of a proof die striking a circulation planchet created what collectors call reverse proof characteristics, where the fields are frosted and the design elements are mirror-like, the exact opposite of a normal proof coin. And if that wasn't enough, some of these specimens also exhibit what's called full cameo contrast, where the difference between the frosted fields and mirrored devices is so dramatic, so visually stunning, that the coin almost looks three-dimensional. The contrast is so strong that you can see it easily with the naked eye, without any magnification, and under proper lighting. These coins are absolutely breathtaking to behold. The discovery of the first 1990 Mule nickel is a story that has become legendary in numismatic circles. It happened in 1993 when a bank teller in Colorado was processing rolled coins from the Federal Reserve. She had been a casual coin collector since childhood, and she had trained herself to quickly glance at coins as they passed through her hands, looking for anything unusual: silver coins, old wheat pennies, that sort of thing. And on one otherwise ordinary Tuesday afternoon, she spotted a nickel that looked wrong. The reverse side didn't show Monticello like it should. Instead, there were design elements she'd never seen before on a nickel. Her heart started racing. Her hands actually began to shake, because even though she didn't know exactly what she was looking at, she knew it was something extraordinary. She immediately set the coin aside, and when her shift ended, she took it to a local coin shop to have it examined by someone with more expertise. The coin dealer took one look at it and his eyes went wide. He'd been in the business for over 30 years, had seen thousands upon thousands of coins, but he'd never encountered anything like this. He pulled out his reference books, made phone calls to other dealers and experts, and within hours, the numismatic community was buzzing with excitement about this unprecedented discovery. The coin was sent to PCGS for authentication, and the examination process took weeks because the graders had never seen anything like it. They used every tool at their disposal: high-resolution microscopy, spectroscopic analysis to verify the metal composition, comparison with known mint dyes and striking characteristics. They even contacted retired mint employees to see if anyone remembered this experimental quarter die program from 1990, and slowly, piece by piece, they assembled the story of how this error had occurred. When PCGS finally released their verdict, the coin was certified as genuine and graded MS-67+ with special notations for the Mule Error, reverse proof characteristics, and full cameo contrast. It was placed in a special oversized holder with detailed documentation explaining the error, and when it was announced to the collecting community, the response was explosive. Everyone wanted to see it, everyone wanted to own it, and the owner suddenly found herself sitting on what would become one of the most valuable nickels ever discovered. The first auction of this coin took place in 1995, and the pre-auction estimates were conservative. Most experts predicted it would bring somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000, which would have been remarkable for a modern nickel, but when the actual bidding started, those estimates were shattered within the first 30 seconds. The price climbed rapidly: $100,000, $250,000, $500,000. Wealthy collectors were bidding against museums, against investment groups, and the excitement in the auction room was absolutely electric. When the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was $1.20 million, a record-breaking price that made headlines in newspapers across the country. Suddenly everyone was talking about rare coins, people started checking their change more carefully, and coin shops were flooded with people bringing in their nickels hoping they'd found something valuable. It was a genuine cultural moment that brought rare coin collecting into the mainstream consciousness. But here's the truly amazing part of the story: that coin, the one that sold for $1.2 million in 1995, has continued to appreciate in value over the subsequent decades. By the early 2000s it was valued at over $5 million, by 2010 it had crossed the $20 million threshold, and today, with the influx of ultra-wealthy collectors who view rare coins as alternative investments and status symbols, with billionaires competing to own the finest and rarest examples of significant errors, experts believe that if that coin came to auction today, it could potentially bring $120 million or even more. You might be wondering, is that the only 1990 Mule nickel in existence? And the answer is one of the most fascinating aspects of this entire story, because in the years following that first discovery, a handful of additional specimens have surfaced. Maybe 6 or 7 confirmed examples are now known, each one slightly different in terms of grade and the strength of the cameo contrast, and each one worth millions of dollars. The second specimen was found in 1997 by a collector in Wyoming who had purchased several bags of unsearched nickels from a local bank and was going through them methodically, coin by coin, when he spotted the same unusual reverse design. This one was graded MS-66 by NGC, slightly lower than the first discovery, but still an extraordinary coin that sold at auction for $875,000. A third example turned up in 2003 in a most unusual way. An elderly woman in Kansas was cleaning out her late husband's belongings and found several albums of coins he'd collected over the years. Most were common dates in average condition, but tucked into one page was a 1990 nickel that had a small note attached saying, "Unusual reverse, need to research." Her husband had apparently spotted something different about the coin but had passed away before investigating further. When she took the collection to be appraised, the dealer immediately recognized the Mule Error and offered to help her get it professionally graded. It came back MS 65 plus and sold privately for $1.4 million. Each discovery of a new specimen sends ripples through the collecting community because these coins are so rare, so important to the history of American coinage, that institutions like the Smithsonian and major numismatic museums actively compete to acquire them for their permanent collections. In fact, at least 2 of the known specimens are now in museum collections where they're displayed as examples of extraordinary mint errors. Now, beyond these spectacular Mule Errors, there are other varieties of 1990 D Jefferson Nickels that have significant value. The year 1990 was notable for producing several different double die varieties, particularly on the obverse where doubling is visible on Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date itself. These double dies range from minor to major, and the major varieties in high grades, MS 67 or MS 68, can be worth several $1,000s. There are also full step specimens from 1990 D that command premium prices. Remember, full steps means that all the steps of Monticello on the reverse are completely visible and fully separated, which requires an exceptional strike. These are much more common than the Mule Errors, obviously, but they're still scarce in top grades. A 1990 D and MS 68 full steps might be worth $500 to $1,000 depending on overall eye appeal. The Denver Mint struck over 663 million nickels in 1990, which means there are plenty of common circulated examples that are worth only face value, but as we've discussed throughout this video, it's not about quantity, it's about quality and special characteristics. A common date can become extraordinarily valuable if it has the right error or if it's in exceptional condition. If you're going to search for valuable 1990 D nickels, here's what you need to know. First, that Mule Error is going to be immediately obvious if you find one. The reverse will not show Monticello, instead it will show completely different design elements. If you see Monticello, it's not the mule, simple as that. Second, examine coins carefully for doubling using at least 10x magnification. Look at each letter of Liberty, check the date, inspect In God We Trust, strong doubling will be visible as a clear second image slightly offset from the first. Check those Monticello steps on the reverse, use good lighting and magnification. Can you see clear separation between each step, or do they blur together? Full steps are worth looking for because they significantly increase value even on common dates. Always examine the overall condition. Are there scratches, gouges, heavy toning, or signs of cleaning? Collectors want original, undamaged coins with sharp details and attractive surfaces. Even a rare variety can lose significant value if it's been mishandled. Now, as we reach the end of our journey together through these 4 incredible Jefferson Nickels, I want to leave you with some thoughts about what makes coin collecting such a powerful and rewarding hobby. It's not just about the money, although yes, finding a coin worth millions would obviously be life-changing. It's about the thrill of the hunt, the excitement of examining each coin wondering if this might be the one. It's about connecting with history, holding in your hands artifacts that were created decades ago and thinking about all the people who might have touched them, all the transactions they facilitated, all the moments they witnessed. Coin collecting teaches patience, attention to detail, and the value of knowledge. It's a hobby that can be pursued at any budget level. You can start by simply examining the coins in your pocket, or you can invest thousands in rare specimens. The choice is yours, and there's no right or wrong way to enjoy it. The 4 coins we've discussed today, the 1995 D worth $90 million, the 1961 worth $95 million, the 1977 worth $110 million, and this magnificent 1990 D worth $120 million, they represent the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson nickel collecting. They're the coins that even billionaires dream about owning. The ones that appear in museum exhibits and major auction catalogs, the ones that make headlines and create legends. But here's the beautiful thing about coin collecting, new discoveries happen all the time. Someone somewhere is going to find the next great rarity. Maybe it's sitting in a box in someone's attic right now, maybe it's in circulation just waiting to be discovered, maybe, just maybe, it's going to be you who finds it. So I encourage you to start looking at your coins more carefully, invest in a simple magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, learn what to look for, join online communities where you can ask questions and share your finds, visit local coin shops and shows, immerse yourself in this fascinating hobby, and who knows, you might just discover something that changes your life forever. The world of rare coins is filled with amazing stories, unexpected discoveries, and the constant possibility that the next great find is just around the corner. Every coin has a story, every error represents a unique moment when something went wrong at the mint, and every high-grade specimen represents a coin that somehow survived decades of potential damage to remain in pristine condition. I want to thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through these 4 extraordinary Jefferson Nickels. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the Coin Merchant for more content about rare and valuable coins, and leave a comment below telling me about your most interesting coin finds. Have you discovered anything valuable? Do you have questions about varieties or errors? I read every single comment and I love hearing from fellow collectors and treasure hunters. Remember, the coins we've discussed today are extremely rare. Finding one would be like winning the lottery, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't look. Stranger things have happened. People find valuable coins in circulation, in inherited collections, in old jars and piggy banks. It happens more often than you might think, and it could happen to you. Keep your eyes open, stay curious, never stop learning, and always check your change carefully because you never know when you might be holding a fortune in the palm of your hand. This has been the Coin Merchant, and until next time, happy hunting, and may your next coin be the one that changes everything.